Hey there. So one of the worst false accusers that I have ever seen in my life. They just had a life sentence overturned, and now their jail term, it's been reduced to 10 years. When I say one of the worst, I'm talking about somebody that staged their own kidnapping, that actually had somebody stab them in the leg, and that's not the craziest part of the story. This story, it's so extreme, in fact, that the person this was aimed at, the person whose life she tried to destroy, could only describe it like the movie Fatal Attraction. Yep, 10 years for somebody that tried so much craziness that the only way that you can describe this is with a movie that essentially, boiled someone's pet. I mean, that's how insane these folks are. Oh, you and I, we're going to talk about this today. Crazy times, huh? Crazy times indeed. So hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. And to truly illustrate how the courts perceive hoax crimes, talking about crimes that would ruin people's lives because of false accusations, I want to talk about the person on the left, one Anisah Ahmed. So Anisah Ahmed was described as an ambitious lawyer from Oxford trying to get her foot in the door. So she would send out CVs to people all the time, or she would message people asking for career advice. Well, she tried to make contact with one Mr. Muhammad. He's going to be the victim in our story. And Mr. Muhammad, he says that she sounded a bit haughty and demanding at first. So, that first contact he deleted without a reply. She persists, though, and 3 years later, she ends up inviting him onto LinkedIn yet again. This time, she says hi, a simple hi. She has an attractive profile picture that basically it leads to an exchange of friendly, rather flirty messages, and well, they end up meeting in a coffee shop. Now, Mr. Muhammad said the two, they hit it off really well. Coffee, it begins conversation. Conversation, it begins so much more. And the two, they end up having a relationship. Sounds great, right? There was only one problem with that happily ever after. Yeah, he was already married. So in the direct aftermath of this discovery, she responds kind of how you think she would respond. She decides she's going to get revenge. She sends intimate messages, the two had exchanged, to Mr. Muhammad's wife. She also sends them out to colleagues, and then she decides she's going to mail the head of chambers, demanding an inquiry into his integrity. Again, these are the kind of things that you expect from someone. This, however, is only the beginning, and what happens afterwards sends Mr. Ahmed to jail not one time, but 2 times. She tries to destroy his life. She comes very close to that, and she earns a life sentence before they decide, hey, we're going to overturn that and only give her a fraction of those years. See, she decides that she's going to create a hoax crime that's going to end up putting him in jail. So the first thing she decides to do is access his work email. She gets in there, she decides to email herself threats, and she decides to follow this up by creating even more false accounts that are mailing her terrible messages again that are supposed to be from him, and she thinks, hey, it's going to work out. Basically, we're going to be able to ruin him. Here's the thing, though. When the police, they actually start looking into this, apparently she's not very gifted at cyber crimes. They figure out very quickly that, well, she's to blame, not him. Now, rightly, the police, they end up arresting her. They arrest her for harassment. When they're talking to her about why this is going on, though, she says that he violated me several times. And, well, to quote the judge in this case, again, he's talking about somebody that is already orchestrated a hoax. Her complaint, it was detailed and convincing, even though it was completely false. And in the immediate, can you guess what happens? That's right. Somebody ends up going to jail. But the craziest thing about this? She doesn't go to jail. That's right. he does. Now, things, they haven't gotten really crazy yet, and this is the problem with hashtag listen and believe and hashtag believe all accusations. You essentially have people that are going to go out, they're going to create false accusations with the intent purpose of ruining someone's life. And you know what? Law enforcement, they allowed that to happen. And well, it gets worse. Now, just to make sure you understand, I'm not embellishing this next part in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to read this to you from an article. I mean, check this out here. So, Ahmed, she also reported receiving threatening phone calls from Mr. Muhammad, but in reality, she had convinced her former boyfriend to buy a phone in the victim's name. And as her harassment trial approached, she became increasingly desperate and asked her former boyfriend to stab her. Now, just to illustrate a point, by the way, she found out that he was married in 2014. Right now, we're talking about the middle of 2015. So it's been going on for well over a year. And now this is going to get even crazier. So here's the article again, making sure you understand that I'm not embellishing this in any way. She ends up phoning emergency services. Again, we're talking about July 12th, 2015. It's been well over a year. And the police, they're dispatched because, of course, there is a crazy story being told from a panicked female. Now, they arrive on scene and they find a parked car with her with a wound in her thigh. And when the paramedics arrive, she begins to tell them this tale about how Mr. Muhammad, he had kidnapped her. Why? Because of everything that had been going on. Because he was still obsessed with her. And he had slashed her thigh. And while doing this, listen to this part. This is even crazier here. So while injured, she'd persuaded her accomplices to send letters in which they confessed Mr. Muhammad had hired them to attack her. So she had her accomplices saying they were working with Mr. Muhammad. They admitted to the attack, but they said, yeah, he's the one behind it. Now, here's a very important question, in my opinion, one that I want you to answer to yourself. What do you think would have happened to Mr. Muhammad? Would he have been found guilty? We're talking about not just harassment, threats, and intimidation. We're talking about violation. We're talking about bodily harm. We're talking about kidnapping and so much more, because that's what she tried to pin on him. Now, the reason that I ask that is because at first a judge actually thought this was bad enough to give her discretionary life. And discretionary life, by the way, that's not a life sentence without parole. After around 4 years plus, you can start trying to get parole, and that depends on your rehabilitation status. She, however, she appealed this, and after everything that she did there, she got a 10-year sentence. Her co-conspirators, by the way, they were given 2-year sentences. So you could destroy a person's life. You can destroy their career. You can try to destroy them, period. Because if he would have been convicted of this, if it wouldn't have been found out, he would have gone away forever. But yeah, she got 10 years for that, and that's it. Yeah, that doesn't sound like justice to me at all, does it to you? But anyway, let me know what you think about this, and as always, appreciate the heck out of you. Want to help out the channel? Check out the links in the description. They always help. Sub, all of that stuff. You know that drill too. But you being here, that matters most of all. So thank you. I appreciate you sincerely. Gonna end here now. See you soon.